We're back with one more down. Today we have a repeat guest, Superintendent Jeremy Batchelor of the Youngstown City School District. Mr. Batchelor was our first guest on One More Down, where we recounted his glory days as a tackle for the Cardinal Mooney Cardinals. But today, Mr. Batchelor joins us to discuss the transition of Youngstown City Schools as they embark on their last year as a two high school district before consolidating into one high school with the transition into a new branding with a new name and a new attitude for the future. We're glad to have you back, Jeremy. It's good to see you again. And, we look forward to hearing what's behind the transition from a two high school system to one consolidated high school, one consolidated middle school.
All right. Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me back. I guess I didn't wear out my welcome the first time. So I appreciate you guys. Been following the podcast all along. You guys have been doing some pretty interesting guests, and I love even how you guys have been talking to a couple of high school students, kind of getting their perspective of things even before they have played their last down. It's pretty cool to see how you guys have evolved it. All
right. As we're here to discuss this change in branding and a transition to a new mascot, with you being the superintendent and having a few years within the district to observe and get ingrained in, what is the tradition and the pride of Youngstown City, you being a Youngstown native, what were the main drivers of the school district deciding to go to one high school, and what ultimately was the main force driving the decision to rebrand the school sports teams and the mascot that represents the district?
Okay. Well, that's a lot. And so I guess I'll start, so I've been in just the last time I was on as the initial guest, I was the deputy superintendent. I wasn't the superintendent at that time yet. So a lot has happened. So I'm going into year 3 as a superintendent. Actually started year 3 on August 1st. And so a lot has happened, good and some challenges. But overall, we're on an upward trajectory overall. But having said that, there's a lot of things that have happened to us. A lot of things have happened in public education. A lot of different legislation has happened. When we came out of House Bill 70 and went into, the new House Bill 110, one of the things that had to happen was what was called a performance audit. And that performance audit, it was determined at that time that our footprint was way too big in the district. We are operationally not efficient as some of our peers across the state that are in like districts. And this is from the Ohio Department of Education and the state auditor. We operate 14 buildings with about 45 to 4,700 students over the last 2 years. And that's just, quite honestly, our footprint is too large. And so we've been spread thin. We're operating buildings. We're having to, run, and we have vacant properties that we're still maintaining as well. So there's a lot of things that urban districts deal with, that all school districts are dealing with now. And then there's some things that are being set up at the state level that really drive what we do. And so one of the things that was really being discussed in the legislation has really been, and it's not going away, it's going to come back around, that buildings that are less than 60% capacity and also maybe been traditionally underperforming, which we would fall into those categories, that there would be a committee at the state level that could come to you and say, you have to sell those buildings. You have to shut them down. You have to sell those buildings at less than market value. To start off, you have to offer them to, by state law, to charter schools. Okay, so less than market value. Current state law says if we have a building and we're no longer using it, before we do anything with it, we have to offer it to charter schools anyway. That's fine. But now we're being told you're going to have to shut this building down and you're going to basically give it away. That's not fair to public education. That's not just a Youngstown thing. That would have been happening all across the state. And so one of the things that myself did and the board said is that we don't want to be kind of left holding the bag ever again. We don't ever want to be in a situation where we're kind of being told what we have to do that is then going to have a negative impact on what we want to do. And so we wanted to be proactive. We realized that we are too big. We do have some buildings that we don't necessarily need, but we need to be strategic about the ones we're using to maximize the education that we give kids, and then strategically be able to either sell or lease or use buildings in other ways. The board has been talking about this for a while. And so then we had a work session in May, and the board said, based on the data we have and everything that we know, it's time to do something different so that we protect this district, so we defend this district. And so my thing as superintendent was, look, this is going to be a big deal. I grew up here. I know how much pride there is in those old schools and those old logos and everything. And I know how much hurt there still is from schools being shut down before. You know, when you talk to those folks at the D-Rand school or South High Warriors, you know, you still get those kind of hurt feelings. So I knew this would be a big deal. So my thing was, we need to be unified. And if they really felt like this was the best decision, which I 100% do, and they do, then I would make it happen. But we had to be unified. This is not a Jeremy Batchelor plan. This is a Youngstown City School District plan. The elected board, everybody has said that they want it, which is what we have, made this decision in conjunction with the superintendent and treasurer. And now we're moving forward. And it is the best thing for this district. If you take emotion out of it and look at logic and look at the shrinking population in the city of Youngstown, the reality of the student body that we have, we can't keep doing the same things and expecting different results.
One of the things that we navigate, you know, as superintendents is you have to deal with, I think I remember you saying facts and logic and what makes the most sense, right, for the betterment of the district. You know, I think what makes schools in America, across the country, unique is the impact that athletics have in the high school experience. Mm-hmm. Right. And we can talk about dollars and cents and facilities, but it is such an emotional attachment to where you went to high school, mm-hmm. Who you played for or who you cheered for, or, you know, some of those legends that you watched playing before you or after you. You know, how do you navigate, you know, making this decision, creating that new path, because you still have two high schools this year, mm-hmm. right? You still have East and Chaney, and you're kind of in this nebulous area where I got a group of kids that this is super meaningful to them. Yeah. You're going to have a group of seniors that this is the last team they play for.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that has to be extremely important. And you got a group of kids and generations that after this year, they're going to play for, in essence, another team.
Right.
Even though it's the same family, different team.
Right.
You know, what are some of your thoughts on navigating that and what that future, what the present might look like and what the future might look like?
Right. So, I mean, first of all, those are things that we are absolutely considering every day. And so for me, what I told the board was that everything was timing. So we actually have a timed out script of how we want this to go so that we can truly honor, you know, the present as well, and then really be ready for the future though. So having said that, we wanted to have those town halls. We wanted to get all this stuff out of the way, spring, summer, so that now we're getting to the fall, we can truly focus on East and Chaney, last year of those two schools and celebrate the class of 2026. Make sure that their last season is meaningful. But then also those underclassmen, they have a great, meaningful year, but then they're also going to be ready to launch into a unified system. So it's going to be kind of hard, but we got the right people, I think, and we got a lot of people in the community and some folks that are in staffing that are willing to do the work. But so for me, now that we named the mascot, we felt it was important, out of respect to all of the other past schools, to create a new Youngstown, one vision, one Youngstown, but still remember the past. Yes, East and Chaney are the last two standing, but there's some others that have already closed and already passed. So we felt like, to be fair to everybody and also to move towards the future, it was time to create a new mantra, a new defender, a new logo that the entire district is branded as. So I want to be clear about that. In 26, 27, the entire district is the Youngstown Defenders. The elementary schools are going to be the Baby Defenders. We're going to be branded as the Defenders of Youngstown. So having said that, now it's about to be August. Well, it is August. And next week we open up with senior football season. Volleyball starts. And so now the majority, even though I got the Defenders hat on today because somebody made it and I was pretty cool, from now on, we're focusing on these seniors and these seasons where we are. And in the background, we will still be doing work to transition and prepare. At the last game of the season, there'll be some stuff that we do to unify. But for the next 9 to 10 weeks, Cowboys are going to get after it. The Bears are going to get after it. And we're going to be there at Rand Stadium and traveling with them across the area to support them. So that's kind of where we are right now.
What kind of feedback have you gotten from and listen, anytime you mess with history,
Mm-hmm.
You mess with tradition, you mess with the legacy of what has been established.
Yeah.
There's always pushback. What's some of the feedback that you've had with navigating that?
So you get some emotion, of course. You got some folks that, the two schools that are standing probably have the most skin in the game. The other ones have kind of already gone through their grieving period a little bit. But the Golden Bear family and, the Chaney family is they're like, okay, why are we doing this? And then once I've explained it to them, most rational people, once I sat down or they came to the town hall meeting or they came to a board meeting and heard things out and saw facts, they kind of understand it. And one of the things that we're going to do when we hired a new principal for that school, there's going to be a place in that building that in both buildings, the middle school as well, where we honor the past truly. There's going to be sections in that building that call on the old schools. There's going to be hallways that you'll have memorabilia and things of that nature. So all that has to be flushed out. And again, I don't want it to be the Jeremy Batchelor plan because I'm not the principal, but myself, Mr. Kearns, and some others, we've started an alumni association. We've talked about making a part of the building that ran the Ward building on Wood Street, an archival of old things from the district. So a lot of things that are going into the Youngstown Foundation has been talking to us. The Rand Foundation's been talking to us about wanting to help and partner with some of those things to make sure we maintain those things. So overall, though, Dallas, the feedback has been positive. When I go to Sparkle in Cornersburg, people walk up to me, or I go to the vegetable stand and, when I'm trying to get my vegetables to eat a little healthier, I've been getting people just walking up to me who I don't know and saying, we understand. We don't necessarily like it, but we understand and keep pressing us forward. So I got to keep pressing us forward.
As we all have grown up in Youngstown and got our start within those school systems and got to watch some of those great teams from the past. I think each of us have our favorite guys that were players in our lifetime. Myself being a Chaney alum, I went through some of what you were just previously discussing when they had the closure back in 2006. And, in saying that, you realize as you travel around the country to different places in different cities, most places there's a school or a powerhouse program that has had to change or shutter. So, I think with what you explain with having to go from 6 schools at one point down to 4 schools at one point, down to 2 schools. And then this isn't new territory for this district in terms of football, because you had a combined team where you had the decision to come back and split that back into East and Chaney. When you think about some of the past names and the personalities and, the family members that you've had that have attended some of these institutions that are no more, what schools jump to the forefront for you? Which people jump to the forefront for you? And then what are some of your memories about, that athletic piece and specifically the football piece that has been the foundation of what Youngstown City football is?
Man, that's a whole separate episode. But I'll try to start. I mean, listen, I'm a South Side guy, so and I'm trying to get out of this side of town mentality around here, because right now, to quite honestly, the side of town in terms of schooling don't really exist. Or the way our schools are zoned, we got South Side kids that go to East already. Okay, we got North Side kids that go to Chaney already. So that whole side of town thing it's out the water. All right, and so having said that, though, when you start thinking about the old days, I mean, like I said, people, Brian Merrill, Garcia Lane, those are the guys that I remember, walking up and down Warren and Evergreen and begging my aunts and uncles to take me to the game and see those guys. And then if I would see them in the neighborhood, it was like I saw Tony Dorsett himself, to be honest with you. And then as I got a little bit older, seeing, guys like Harold and Daryl Dabney at South, and then Andre Brown, that, he was just looking at basketball. Andre Brown, who works in the district now, watching him, I was just messing with him Saturday at the alumni picnic about his Jerry curl and his all-city picture and those types of things. And I mean, people like Booker Newberry from our generation, those types of guys, Nate Armstrong, I'm going to get in trouble because there's so many that were just influential and that you think of when you think about the neighborhood, think about games. But then, I spent some time at East High School. So, people like, little John Fitzgerald, man, and we had Chris there when I was there as a principal, but I played against his dad. And I told Chris all the time, man, your dad, you getting the accolades, but your dad was small but mighty, man. I hated blocking that dude. So guys like that, Dwaylen Alexander, Kevin Harris. I mean, the list goes on and on. We talk about it. You and I talk about it all the time. We used to wait till that all-city picture come out on Christmas. Usually on Christmas morning. Come out on Christmas morning. That was like the best part of Christmas. It wasn't necessarily the toys. So getting that newspaper and seeing them all-city pictures and dudes with their crazy poses and things like that. Those are the things that I remember about the City Series. And the schools that came before us. And then people like Coach Kopp, even though I didn't play for him, he coached me in an all-star game, and Coach Butchie wasn't available to get me equipment. So he took me up to Wilson and gave me equipment. I mean, so the legacy, the names, and again, Coach Burtis, I know you played for, you coached for Dallas. There's so many things, and I got to know people like John Popio through the years that I've been working in the district now that I heard you used to talk about all the time. And I'd be like, man, who is this dude? And then now I've got to meet him, like Dan Cipriano, all these guys, and I could just throw out names forever. But to me, it's just the people in the City Series and the pride that people have about the city. So I understand that this is sensitive, and we're going to do our best to make sure that we always continue to honor those things. But if we can take the best of all that and put it into one package, we were talking about this before we came on the air. It's time to put some banners on the wall in Youngstown.
Well, so, here's a couple thoughts I have. Like, you have a dual role in this, meaning, you just named a bunch of people that you have an emotional attachment to
Yes.
because of things that you experienced when you were young.
Right.
And you also have a responsibility of being the guy in charge of all this
Mm-hmm.
to maybe not specifically, but allow the opportunity for this generation of kids to have their own heroes that they can have. And I think that that's kind of the duality of it, right?
Yeah.
You got that emotion that you have, that people have, and then you have the functionality of what do I do to create an environment where the this group of 10-year-olds can go to our games, whatever banner it's under,
Mm-hmm.
and have the same experience. Maybe the names change, maybe the logo changes, but the emotional attachment is similar. And unfortunately, in a position like yours, mine, it's not always easy, but you and your board and everybody involved have to kind of settle into that spot to create an environment for the next generation of people to have a similar experience.
So I think you would agree to this. I mean, you played for a winning program, and you foster. You're in a district that is doing good things for kids. Winning breeds success, or success allows you to have a positive feeling. Be real, Youngstown has suffered enough. We was academically, even athletically. And so I go back to my first year as the principal at East when I came over in 2018. And Ron, you mentioned that, we were one program at that time. Even though Chaney was just coming back, we had one program. They had been that way for a few years. That year, I saw some of the best football in this area that I've seen in a long time, that I've seen, period, together. And we weren't as good as we could have been. Okay. But the excitement that I saw generating, and I remember I used to go live at the games. And I remember that first game over at Boardman, there were people, and nobody was in the stands. And we went out there, and I believe we didn't win, but we played competitively, and you could see the momentum. And so every week, then we start going out, and we start winning. Then the crowd got a little bit bigger. Then we beat Hubbard, and the crowd got bigger. We beat Poland, and the crowd got bigger, and people start coming. To the point we got to that playoffs. And we moved the game to YSU. We should have kept it at Rand Stadium, but that was a mistake we made, because that crowd, by the time we got to week 10, week 11, we earned the right to host a playoff game. That team was poised to make a deep run, and some things just happened and some things broke down. But I do believe, had we beat Girard in that round, we played for the next 4 or 5 weeks. And the excitement that had been generated around there, people were printing up T-shirts and bringing them up to the school and everything. And then if we would have stayed together, which if is, we don't want to deal in ifs, but there would have been powerful things. But I guess back to that, when we were being successful, you started seeing more kids coming to the game. You start seeing more people coming to the game. I want to bring that back. And I believe we can get there. And I believe that not only helps us with football, but it helps us with parent engagement. It helps us with academics. It helps us with everything. I tell people all the time, as a high school principal, when I was the principal, the first thing I did when I came to East High School was I went out on the football field and talked to the football team and said, I need your help to make sure that we have a great school year. I did the same thing at East Bladen High School down in North Carolina. These things matter. Winning matters. All things should not be about sports, as we know. But if you can be successful out there on that field, it'll generate excitement about your entire school. And in this case, I believe our entire school district. So, yes, we got to put a winner out there, Dallas. And so I believe that then we'll never forget about the old schools, but then that generation, they'll be looking forward to being the next defenders, the class of 2033 or 34 or whatever. So I'm excited about what we get the opportunity to build, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and Ron, I'll let you chime in here. I will say, having success in any athletic program does make the hallways a little bit more buzz.
Absolutely.
It definitely pride. right? There's a level of pride that comes with it.
From your vantage point, when you observe what the kids in this current climate are in terms of personality, work ethic, and preparedness, you have some feeder programs that have been put in place and been established at the youth level. You have the East Middle School Bears and the Chaney Middle School Cowboys already in place. What is it that you see from the younger crop of kids, as they're going to be the ones that are merging in the base of what is this new period in Youngstown football? What are some of the keys that you see out of that group of younger students that give you hope and a positive outlook for the future, and being that base of kids that is the first group of kids to embrace the Defenders mascot?
So I'll say I want to give a shout out to the Little League programs, Little Bears, Little Cowboys. They're doing a phenomenal job with numbers. I mean, it reminds me of the days when you and I played, and we played in the Vonnie Rogers League. Honestly, even more so now. Obviously, we don't have as many teams, and honestly, the landscape of Little League football has changed a little bit. And they're doing some travel ball and those types of things. And so I'm going to talk about where they're looking to go and where I'm kind of pushing them to go, even though I don't have any skin in the game. They don't have to listen to anything I say, but they do recognize that they are, technically our feeder. And so really I try to spend, or our athletic director and coaches try to spend as much time supporting those programs, fostering those kids, making sure those kids and the coaches are making sure they're doing the right things in the classroom and setting those good standard behaviors and baselines so that they are, number one, students and good students, and then they can roll into being our scholar athletes. And so I'm excited. Their numbers are really good. I actually had a joint meeting with some of the Little League coaches a couple of weeks ago. I posed. They actually, one of the Little League programs said, Mr. Batchelor, your vision and what we're trying to go in the district, should we not be one Little League program? And we play and we go and travel places because they travel now. But what happens is a lot of times the depth is so spread out, just like we are at the high school level. We're spread out. If we bring it together, we got depth. And so they've been talking about what would happen if they came together and they had depth, and what they could do at the state and national level in Little League football. So, and again, they can do what they want to do, but we have had conversations about them becoming one program, Little Defenders. And again, I'll keep fostering those conversations, but I'll also respect them if they decide that's not what they want to do. But I do believe it will be powerful for them, so that you spend a little bit of time down in North Carolina. With them dark horses, they start running the same plays at 6 years old that they run at 18 when they're a senior at Clinton High School. That's what we need to build in Youngstown. Communities like that build and have strong powerhouse programs. Down in Aliquippa, they run programs from the time they start playing Little League football till they become high school. Success breeds success, man. So, again, we're going to let people make some decisions, but I think if people really want to be successful, we need to pool our resources and do what's best for kids.
And, as the two high schools get ready to open up for this season before merging, what is it that you would like to see in terms of those two programs giving their best effort, as they push through as individual schools, the East Golden Bears and the Chaney Cowboys? You have one school that's under a transition in terms of head coaching, and then you have Chaney, who has had their coach Seth Atram in place. Mm-hmm. What is it that you would like to see ideally out of those two schools as they, propel themselves to that last meeting at the end of the season?
Number one thing I want to see is that they represent their schools and their families and their communities with a high standard, great sportsmanship on the field, School starts August 26th. I need to make sure I want all their butts in school every day on time. And I want them representing the program the right way. And I believe that Coach Antrim and Coach Green are both preaching those same things, and they're getting ready for that. So that's what I want to see, number one. But then, of course, I want to see victories. Of course, I want to see them be out there and be competitive. And quite honestly, I've been kind of watching from afar. I'm not the principal anymore, and I'm not coaching. And so I try to let them do what they do. But I did get an opportunity to stop out at practice briefly for both schools yesterday, not yesterday, but Monday. I just stopped out just to say hi to the guys because I hadn't seen them all summer, and say hi to the coaches, let them know we're supporting them. And they got really good numbers, which had been a problem at East for a couple of years after we broke up and kind of went back to two programs. But then we built it back up, under Coach Culliver, and Coach Green was a part of Coach Culliver's staff. So the transition is there, but Coach Green has done so far a really good job of keeping things going in a upward trajectory and a higher standard. And so I was over the other day, and one thing I noticed, my old linemen, they got some horses up there. They got some big boys. Now I got to make sure that they can get off that ball. So tomorrow we'll see during the scrimmage. But they got some bodies. They're looking good. They're out there working hard. Their numbers are good at practice. We don't got guys missing practice and those type of things. And then I went over to the west side and stopped by Chaney, and Coach Antrim's got his thing rolling like a well-oiled machine. Like you said, he's been around for a little bit, and so practice kind of runs like clockwork. Got guys over there. He's got the twins that came over from Austintown, and they're the leaders on that team, as well as Dwayne Thompson and some guys. And so, and I know I'm missing guys, but both teams are working hard. And so I just want to see them be good students. But I would love to see both of them get 7-8 wins this year. And I really think that's possible. And so, and then people might say, well, then why are you going to break them up? Well, okay, if they can both win 7 games apiece, 7 or 8 games apiece, imagine what they can do together. Imagine what they can do together. And I think they know that. I was talking to Coach Antrim, and he kind of alluded to, guys are, of course, got feelings, but some of the underclassmen, I believe, are starting to get excited because they know what we can do. But we got to take care of this season first, though.
So, and this is talking about the future. So it's somewhat of a speculative question, but, if I'm sitting in your seat, and I'm thinking about, I have to open a high school up. I have to hire a head football coach, a volleyball coach, basketball coach, girls basketball, the whole gambit.
Yeah.
I think that in my mind, I would think that has to be a dynamic personality that is a community builder, that has the ability to create collaboration. So it's a bit of a unique position. And I guess from my standpoint, I'd be thinking about principal and probably football because it's a football podcast, right?
Right.
That has to be, in my mind, it's not always about the X's and O's, but it's about getting the right people in the room.
Absolutely. June 19th, right after the last town hall, we posted for founding principals of our new high school and middle school because, thankful for the board to allowing us to really work on that. We want to get those people in place so they're in place to have a year of transition planning. So now if it's a current employee, then obviously they got to pull double duty. But if it's somebody that we end up bringing from the outside, which, we'll see, then they would have a transitional small contract to be able to come to the district some days and work with our planning teams. So that principal is posted right now, and we have set to do some interviews probably mid-September. I think that's the dates we chose. We want to get school open, get things going, because we do have some of our current principals who've put in. And so to be fair to them, I want them to focus on opening school right now. But then after a few weeks, we will do some interviews, and we've established a panel that will consist of obviously some central office folks, and some community folks, but particularly some teachers too. And so that principal is going to be the next key hire that we make. And you kind of hit it. At our staffing level at the high school is going to be a head principal, who technically will also be a part of my executive cabinet. And then we're going to have a grade level principal. So we're going to staff it at a high level to make sure that we have order and we have good teaching and learning going on in that school. And so when we hire that new principal, they're going to be a part of every planning meeting that we have moving forward. And they're going to be one's task along with myself in selecting those head coaches. And absolutely, they have to be dynamic individuals that don't just know the X's and O's, but can bring community together. That head principal can't just be a good master scheduler or a good disciplinarian. They got to be able to bring the whole community together. So you hit it on the head. Those are the two next major hires.
You know, when we talk about the history of Youngstown City Schools and in particular the football landscape, you know, we are all founded under the Rand Tigers because they were the first football program in existence. And then you have South being established in 1911. Those two schools met annually between the old Rand Stadium and the old South High Stadium. You have East and Chaney that come into existence in the 1920s. A lot of the young kids today wouldn't know that Chaney was in the old West Elementary School and moved over to its current site in sometime in the 1950s. So, you know, you have those different schools. You have Woodrow Wilson, you have North High, which used to be Scienceville. Some people may not know of the previous mascots for a few of those schools. You have East, who was branded under the Sunrisers name before they became the Golden Bears. Your mentor and coach, Don Butchie, was an outstanding quarterback for them in the 1950s. We have the only Heisman winner in Youngstown, Ohio, to come out of Chaney High School, and Frank Sinkowitz. You have plenty of pro athletes out of Rand. You have Terry Taylor, you have Dennis Mosley, who had careers in the NFL and did great things at the college level. Over at South, you have Bob Dove, who ended up going on to become a coaching legend in his own right. Woodrow Wilson, they had a fantastic team during the 1946 and 47 seasons. I think their last push for the city title was 1952 or 53. We have a string of undefeated teams out of the old South High School. 1957, Rand in 1956 was undefeated. You had a Chaney team that went 10-0 in 1974 and did not make a playoff. You have the 1997 Chaney Cowboys led by Antoine and Anthony Floyd, who made it to the state title game and lost to DeSales by a late field goal. North Bulldogs, you have great guys like Sherman Smith. You have Coach Knox that established good things out of that program after they had the longest losing streak in Ohio history. So when you talk about the foundation of what Youngstown City School football is, you had Mooney and Ursuline as previous members of that City Series conference before splitting off to the SVC. So in saying all of that and highlighting some of those previous guys and some of those great names and tradition, some of the memories that we all hold dear about what the atmosphere was like at some of those old stadiums and attending those games. And then, that jubilation that we all felt being little kids looking at the all city pictures, the all SVC pictures, to all three of us having the honor of being recognized as first team performers in the City Series and in the SVC. So our city has been through transition. It's been through change in the past. It still produce great individuals and great personalities. And I think at the core of it, football is still always going to be king in that valley. As you think about the transition to one unified high school under the banner of the Youngstown Defenders, what does that owl and that mascot represent to you? And what is the vision behind choosing that mascot to be the representative of the new transition for these current students?
So, man, first of all, you're going to be on our committee when we do our archival center and historian, and we'll make you an unofficial historian of the Youngstown City School athletics, because you got a wealth of knowledge, brother. And so thanks for that rundown for me, because a lot of that I did not know. But I do know a lot of the history in this city, number one, overall, because I am, we same generation. But so the Defender mascot or Defender name, like I said, it has a lot of meaning. We actually started that whole mantra this past school year. And I said before, our kids bought into it. People give our kids a hard time right now. We all say this generation, all they want to do is be on their phones, whatever. They're paying attention. And I say this all the time. They pay attention to what we're saying and what we're doing if they truly value, if you establish those relationships. And so when they had the opportunity, they chose this. Now, they didn't necessarily choose the owl, but they chose the Defenders and what it stands for. And then so we have a creative team, and the owl, it would have been easy to pick a lion or a wolf pack or something of that nature. But the owl has, first of all, it's indigenous to Ohio. Okay. And then what it represents with, in culture of wisdom, and that the owl is a bird of prey. I don't know if people realize that. It's not just this little wise owl, that we watched on Saturday morning on, what was that? Licking the lollipop or whatever. The owl is vicious if you mess with its inhabitation. It takes care of business. It is truly a bird of prey, but it's also about being patient and having wisdom, and it represents scholarly attainment. If you look it up and you ask what does it owl represent, it talks about scholarly attainment, but also being a protector. And that's what we all have said we want Youngstown to be. We want to defend it. Sometimes people give Youngstown a bad rap. Sometimes we give Youngstown a bad rap. We need to start defending it. We need to start taking care of it. And so I believe that this Defender mantra and that owl represents all that is good. And we kind of looked at all of the past mascots and we said, does this make sense? Take all of them into consideration. The presidents from Wilson before they became the Redmen. Then, the Sunrisers, which I had no idea until Willie Duck started painting the new bear on the wall, and they put that up there, and then I learned about that history. Took all those, and we said, tell me how these things come together to represent Youngstown. And I'm going to share this in another blog post that I write. I'm going to share how all of the old mascots are absolutely represented in the new owl figure. And so, and honestly, I'm now, everywhere I go, I hear owls hooting. It's weird. I told my wife today, I came in the house, I heard an owl in the neighborhood. And then people are already coming up with different mantras. I came up with the paws up for the Bears. I got people coming up to me saying we got to be the claws up, and we got to do different things. We got to get, YSU has Pete and Penny, the penguin. They want me to come up with a male and female mascot. So people are excited. But again, I want to temper us down a little bit so we can make sure these Golden Bears and these Cowboys finish strong. But it is exciting. I'm excited. The Defender's name, some people love it, some people hate it. But I think what it represents, most people are getting behind. And then that owl is a representation of being fierce, but wise and protecting its young. I think you can't argue with that. So that was really the philosophy behind it. And then I want to give a shout out to Matt Garcher. Matt is phenomenal. Matt is really one of our technology supervisors that helps teachers with technology, but he dibbles and dabbles in some graphic design. And so he worked with us and he came up with that design that we have. And that was just the unofficial design. And we were going to work with a marketing firm to really work, and we still are, to work on some branding and logos and things of that nature. But everybody that we've talked to has said the logo is so strong, we don't really know how we can improve it. But we'll still work with some folks and look at how we can make sure that it's branded. We also want to create a true Youngstown brand where, we're going to have things copyrighted, and create a branding guide and those types of things. So right now, people are getting T-shirts printed, including myself and this and that. But at some point, we're going to put the stop to that until we get the whole branding guide and logo out there so we can do it and do it right. So again, wisdom, protection and defending Youngstown. That's really what the Owl and the Defenders is about. And most importantly, our kids bought into it.
Well, Jeremy, I appreciate talking to you, and I think it's important to say that so many things in public education are kind of coming down the pike that are I don't want to say forcing, but encouraging people to make decisions, and people in leadership. And it's not always easy,
Right.
And I think that a lot of times when we make choices, it's kind of a zero-sum game,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to have reasons behind why you do what you do, and honor the tradition and the history that has come before you, but also create that pathway forward.
Yeah.
And I know that's definitely your heart to set the next generation up for success in academics and athletics. Because if you don't have them in the building, they can't be on the playing field, whatever that is.
Not at all.
So no, I appreciate it. And doing this podcast has, opened my eyes to a lot of the history of the city that I didn't know. And I've got the opportunity to talk to a lot of people that, and I'm sure Ron would say the same thing, that I looked up to when I was playing. Like talking to Ted Bell was like was talking to the legend.
Absolutely,
right? It's just been a really good, enjoyable thing, and I think that you talk about the emotion of it. Kids are resilient. Kids will buy in, and they'll create their own legends in the future.
Yeah.
So best of luck to you in this.
Appreciate it. I appreciate you guys. Again, I'm glad to be on, and looking forward to continually watching you guys. So thanks for what you do and giving us a platform. Talk about all things football. It's that time of year, guys. Open up next week. All right.
As we always wrap up and end, with this being a transition point, with the Chaney Cowboys and the East Golden Bears making their last run in 2025, for those seniors going on to their next endeavors after this season, if you had to put the transition into one more down terms and philosophy, what advice would you give those seniors that are playing their last season for each one of those teams and those individual head coaches and assistants as they take us into the future under the old banner of East and Chaney?
So I look at everything as a glass half full and not half empty. They got an opportunity this year. They get to be the last program in their school's history as of right now. So they get to leave a legacy that, quite honestly, is a lasting legacy. They get to be the last Golden Bear and Chaney Cowboy individual program. So what they do and go out and establish will always live on. Like I said, we're going to move forward, but we're never going to forget the old stuff. We may have to, work on it, but they get an opportunity to basically say we were the last. We finished it off. And so I would tell them to go out and give everything they got, every play they got. And then for those seniors, you're the last ones, and so you get to carry that on. You get those bragging rights. Whoever ends up playing at the last game of the season, whoever wins, it should be a very competitive game, but whoever wins will have bragging rights for the rest of their life. So when they're our age and they're at, Antone's or, sitting at BW3 or whatever, they're going to be able to talk about, remember when we beat y'all by 3 or we beat y'all at Rand Stadium and blah, blah, blah. And then next year they became those defenders. They will be able to talk junk. But then those underclassmen, I would say, bring your tradition from those old schools. We're going to bring them to melting pot and become the best program in the world. So I'm not going to go out with a bang and be ready to come and make some noise. As Leon said, let the world know we're coming.
that pretty much every all-city pitcher and team